Penfolds have released the Australia Collection 2021. If we haven't met before, my name is James Follent, and I believe the world of Australian wine is beautiful and complex. So I create videos for wine lovers to learn more about the world of wine. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Penfolds have released the 2021 Australia Collection of the Penfolds range of wines, making up 16 different wines. And today I'm going to go through each of those wines and each of the price points that they come in at. So let's get started. The flagship of the series is the Penfolds Grange from the 2017 vintage, coming in at $950. And this Grange is described as very deep, dark, dense color with plenty of purple in the rim. The bouquet, the smell, is classic Grange, loaded with toasty, smoky, oaky scents of smoked meats and toasted barrels, dried herbs, adding an extra fragrance and hints of five spice, especially star anise. It's very full-bodied and concentrated, powerful and long-lasting, but the tannins are beautifully crafted and supple, harmonious, and avoid any suggestion of astringency. The core of the wine is lusciously fruit-sweet and delicious, the robe of tannin complementary rather than domineering. The finish is tremendously long and satisfying. I can enjoy drinking this now, not usual with a new Grange release. Quite magnificent wine and a great Grange. And the other thing that is unique about the 70th anniversary year of Grange is that this is only the seventh Grange to be made of 100% Shiraz, and a full Shiraz Grange only has about a 10% hit rate. 7 out of 70 wines of the last 70 vintages of Grange, which adds to it, and that bottle of Grange was coming in at $950 per bottle. The second wine as part of this is the Bin 707 Cabernet Sauvignon from the 2009 vintage, coming in at $650 a bottle. The Bin 707 Cabernet Sauvignon from 2019 reflects the Penfolds house style through a Cabernet Sauvignon lens, with its intensely flavoured fruit, completion of fermentation and maturation in new oak, expressing a Penfolds understanding of multi-vineyard, multi-region fruit sourcing. And Bin 707 was first vintage in 1964, and the wine was not made from 1970 to 1975, when the fruit was directed to other Penfolds wines, nor in 81, 95, 2000, 2003, or 2011. So the Bin 707 Cabernet Sauvignon 2019 has also been described as such a bold statement of new American oak seems somehow old-fashioned in this day and age of Australian Cabernet, and yet there is a comfortable assurance about the irrefutable Bin 707 model, promising that the woodwork will find its place with sufficient patience. In imitable Bin 707 form, new American oak rises to the auspicious occasion, uplifting to mighty effect and monumental tannin impact. It's also described as classic blackcurrant mulberry aromas with roasted chestnut, graphite notes, ample yet elemental, and multi-layered with plentiful pure blackcurrant mulberry fruits, fine persistent grainy and muscular tannins, superb mid-palate richness, and underlying mocha roasted chestnut notes, finishing with brambly firm with plenty of cedarwood cassis notes. A sturdy Bin 707 with beautiful fruit definition and tannin vigor. Claret lovers rejoice. So the Bin 707 was coming in at $650 per bottle. The next wine on the list was the third, the RTW Bin 789 Barossa Valley Shiraz from the 2019 vintage, coming in at $200 a bottle. So looking at the RTW, the initials RTW stand for Red Wine Making Trial, and the name given to the project internally when development work began in 1995. Naturally, now no longer a trial, RTW Shiraz was launched in May 2000 with the 1997 vintage. The alphanumeric bin designation 798 was bestowed upon the wine from the 2016 vintage. Its style is opulent and fleshy, contrasting with Grange, which is more muscular and assertive. RTW is made from fruit primarily selected for its aromatic qualities and plush texture. The result is a wine that helps to redefine Barossa Shiraz at the highest quality level. And RTW wines are built for the long haul with precision, concentration, and balance to age for many years. And this wine has also been described as lovely, intense, dark cherry, blackberry, mulberry, praline aromas with ginger notes. Another standout vintage showing all the hallmarks of regional provenance and the Penfolds house style, one for the long haul. It's also been described as the depth of big base notes shows the presence of Marananga fruit in the rich blend, rounding out a completely seductive portrait of Shiraz. It's highly fragrant with notes of sage over red currant and lush purple berries, while the rich mid-palate rolls effortlessly in the mouth before elegant oak binds it all to ensure a dry, savoury finish. Its easy marriage of style and substance is most alluring. And this wine was coming in around the $200 mark, buying for $200 a bottle. The next wine is the Yattarna Chardonnay from 2009, coming in at $175 a bottle. The Yattarna Chardonnay 2019 is Penfolds' flagship white wine, and it is built to last, and it follows on from a strong 2018 vintage Chardonnay. So Yattarna Chardonnay was launched in 1998 with the 1995 vintage. Yattarna is the result of one of the most comprehensive, focused and highly publicised wine development projects ever conducted in Australia. The aspiration and independence of mind across generations of Penfolds winemakers inspired the ambition to create a white wine that would set the standard for ultra-fine Australian Chardonnay, selectively sourcing only the very best Chardonnay fruit from cool climate regions. Coupled with clever winemaking, the style continues to evolve. Yattarna reflects Penfolds' patience and continued commitments to its original goal. Its very name being drawn from local indigenous language, meaning little by little, gradually. Each vintage provides the opportunity to further raise the quality bar. So this is an impressive follow-on from the 2018 vintage, and also reminding people of the 2011 and 2012 releases of Yattarna. And it has been described as the tension, endurance, and sheer molecular detail of Yattarna propels it to the pinnacle of Australia's pointy Chardonnay pyramid, and 2019 follows confidently in the hallowed footsteps of the sublime 2018. This is a vintage that demands a great deal of time to unfurl. Tight, compact, focused, and immensely determined, it leads out in its virile youth with the finest struck flint and gunpowder, powder fine, crystalline minerality surges long and strong. Another epic Yattarna. Also described as bright, gleaming, light yellow colour, the bouquet initially quite strong on smoky, reductive matchstick touches, and toasty oak strongly apparent on nose and palate, but not overdone. The wine is focused, taut, intense, and discreetly rich across the tongue. The aftertaste very long and empathetic, savoury dryness carrying long, leaving an appetizing Moorishness that endures, intense and high potential. The next wine is a bit more of a mystery with price, the Magill Estate Shiraz 2019 vintage. It's not clear what the price point is for that wine. is based on the Penfolds website. It doesn't look like it's available for purchase quite yet, but from previous vintages, it's in the ballpark of about $100 per bottle for the Magill Estate Shiraz from 2019. And this single vineyard Magill Estate Shiraz is intrinsically linked to the Penfolds beginning. Sourced from the Magill vineyard on the edge of Adelaide's eastern suburbs, the fruit is crushed, fermented, and matured on site at the original winery established in 1844. Magill Estate Shiraz, first produced in 1983, is an elegant medium weight style with velvety texture and fine tannins, matured in both French and American oak. It's sleek and contemporary for wine, yet crafted to the original way, hand-picked, vinified in open fermenters, then basket pressed to complete fermentation in barrel. It's been described as the exotic spice and plump black fruits that typify the unique Adelaide suburban terroir that is Magill Estate leap from the glass and carry long and strong through a palate of grand stature and structural poise, luscious and enduring. This is a grand take on Magill. And also then looking at the next wine, the Henri Shiraz 2018, coming in at $135 a bottle. The Henri Shiraz 2018 is looking like it may be one of the best valued bottles from the 2021 Australia collection that Penfolds has on offer. So this Henri Shiraz 2018 is coming in at $135 per bottle. And St. Henri is a time-honoured and alternative expression of Shiraz and an intriguing counterpoint to Grange. It is unusual amongst high-quality Australian red wines as it does not rely on any new oak. Released for the first time by Penfolds in the early 1950s, it gained a new lease on life in the 1990s as its quality and distinctive style became better understood. Proudly a wine style that hasn't succumbed to the dictates of fashion or commerce, St. Henri is rich and plush when young, gaining soft, earthy, mocha-like characters when with age. It is matured in an assortment of old, large vats that allow the wine to develop, imparting minimal, if any, oak character. Although a small proportion of Cabernet may sneak into the blend, the focus point for St. Henri remains the Shiraz, and it has been described as a beautiful St. Henri vintage, gorgeously seductive blackberry, mulberry, dark cherry, sweet plum aromas with dark chocolate, graphite, roasted walnuts, inky and sinuous palate with plentiful ripe blackberry, mulberry fruits, fine, loose-knit, chalky tannins, superb mid-palate viscosity and underlining chinotto roasted walnut notes. One of the great St. Henri vintages in recent times based on the length and breadth of South Australian vineyards. It's also been described as the effortless, unassuming self-assuredness of St. Henri holds a unique and beloved place in the assemblage of Penfolds heroes, and 2018 marks another of the greats accomplished, spicy, glossy black fruit of grand fruit integrity unfold to magnificent effects in the glass. I look forward to spectating from the sidelines as its fruity slowly unfurls over the decades to come, an adorable St. Henri that exemplifies all that the label stands for. The next wine in the collection is the Reserve Binay Adelaide Hills Chardonnay from the 2020 vintage, coming in at $125 a bottle. The Reserve Binay Chardonnay has evolved into a wine that is now a distinctive single region style in its own right, with the contemporary expressive Adelaide Hills Chardonnay persona. Fruit is hand-picked into small bins and then whole bunch pressed. A portion of the juice is incrementally filled to barrel directly from the press and allowed to undergo a natural fermentation, sans inoculation. Every new and seasoned French oak barrique is its own unique 225-litre ferment. Enhanced mouthfeel and complexity is achieved by fermenting and maturing on solids with regular yeast lees stirring. 100% malolactic fermentation, which is all natural. So this wine has all the great characters of Grand Cru Chardonnay, but it's very much from South Australia. And it's been described as the rise and the refinement of Bin A has marked a magnificent trajectory of the modern era, and 2020 meets the grand expectation with astonishing precision and endurance. For all that this turbulent vintage brought to the Adelaide Hills and to the world, there is a resolute conviction and assuredness to this wine that sets it apart among the greatest and longest lived of all. A textbook exemplar of Kim Schrotter's wizardry of uniting profound gunflint reduction, high tensile white fruits, and lightning acidity with uber classy oak. And the following wine, the Bin 150 Marananga Shiraz from the 2019 vintage, is $100 a bottle. And the Bin 150 Marananga Shiraz is a sub-regional expression that is unmistakably Penfolds in character, conceived from the ancient soils of Marananga, which lie very close to the centre of the Barossa Valley floor, slightly to the northwest, where warm, dry conditions and rich red soil provide the backbone to some of the region's best-known wines. Each release delivers a contemporary Shiraz alternative, framed by a mix of oaks, French and American, old and new, crafted in the Penfolds way. This wine is reflective of the Barossa in this year, more a facet of the earth below, and it's been described as deep crimson, lifted black, Chinotto, dark chocolate, roasted chestnut, marzipan aromas. Beautifully balanced, vigorous wine with inky blackberry, elderberry, Chinotto, praline flavours, fine, loose-knit, chalky green tannins, and roasted chestnut. Cream brulee, espresso notes, finishes claret firm with persistent inky dark fruits, superb fruit definition, oaky complexity and vigour, a high individual and beautiful wine with exceptional singularity and stamp of place. It's also been described as Marananga parades its depth, density, and gloss to full effect. The dry and warm 2019 season builds a significant presence of black plum and blackberry fruit, fresh licorice straps, and even a spicy fruit compote feel. Firm, fine, drying tannins speak both of the season and the house, commanding all the longevity to be expected of both. A powerful, if assertive, take on Marananga. The next wine that was released in the series was the Bin 389 Cabernet Sauvignon Shiraz, the much loved Bin 389 Cabernet Shiraz Cabernet. The 2019 vintage is $100 per bottle. I believe the Bin 389 also continues to hold the place as one of Australia's most cellared wines. So the Bin 389 was often referred to as Baby Grange, in part because components of the wine are matured in the same barrels that held the previous vintage of Grange. First made in 1960 by the legendary Max Schubert, this was the wine that helped forge Penfolds' reputation with red wine drinkers by combining the structure of Cabernet Sauvignon with the richness of Shiraz, exemplifying the judicious balance of fruit and oak. Bin 389 highlights the generous mid-palate Penfolds is known for. So the Bin 389 is a perennial overachiever in any vintage, indeed, a very good follow-on to the 2008 Bin 389. It's been described as a dark horse vintage with the shape of Bin 389 and the talk of Bin 707A. Fascinating but quite different. Bin 389 revealing the light and shade of the multiple regional sourcing and the hallmarks of the Penfolds style should last the distance. It's also been described as the deep, dense, glass-staining red and purple colour, the bouquet having a savoury mix of earthy spice, blackstrap, licorice, and toasty barrel nuances, as well as the palate being savoury and drying. The more sapid and less fruity aspects typical of the Bin 389 style. Great intensity, concentration, and focus. Elegant, taut, and long lingering. A classic 389. Age-worthy and very much in the style groove. The next wine is the Bin 407 Cabernet Sauvignon from the vintage 2019, coming in at $110 a bottle. So this has been described as a wine with nuances of menthol and eucalypt not often seen in the Bin 407, perhaps the presence of pathway taking a stronger lead in this vintage. This might also be the explanation for a more saline feel to the palate, or the classic black currant cassis and roast capsicum expected of the Bin 407 hold through a finish of impressive line and length, sustained by fine grain and mineral tannins. I've also seen it described as potentially one that's the lower value for money side of things from, I think, Huan Hook, who gave that review of the Bin 407 Cabernet Sauvignon, that it was below what was expected of this quality and caliber for the wine compared to all the other wines released as part of the 2021 collection. And the next wine that was released as part of this Connect collection was the Bin 128 Coonawarra Shiraz from the 2019 vintage, coming in at $60 a bottle. So with each vintage release, the cool climate Bin 128 Coonawarra Shiraz provides an interesting counterpoint to the more opulent and richly concentrated warm climate Bin 28 Shiraz. Bin 128 comprises fruit sourced from the unique Terra Rosa soils of the Coonawarra, a region that exemplifies the perfume, transparency, and seductive nature of cool climate red tail wines. Coonawarra has remained the source of Shiraz fruit for Bin 128 since the inaugural release of the 1962 vintage. In order to further enhance the regional qualities of Bin 128, the wine is matured in a mixture of new and seasoned French oak. So it's sharply and even polished and refined Coonawarra Shiraz. It's been described as bright yet deep and precise, with Satsuma plum core to this release. The way it melds seamlessly with the white pepper that declares Coonawarra Shiraz and the violet that elevates the back palate in a wonderful glimmer of cool climate palate fragrance. Magnificent acid line and fine ground chalk mineral tannins epitomize Coonawarra and declare a long future. I've been avidly following and cellaring Bin 128 for 25 vintages, and this is up there with my favourites. It's also described as medium deep crimson, a classic claret style wine with lovely intense lifted blackcurrant, blackberry, mocha, cedarwood aromas with light sage and herb garden notes, inky, deep, generous, and compact with fresh blackcurrant, blackberry, mulberry, red cherry fruits, plentiful fine grain tannins, and underlying savoury oak. Finishes juicy firm with an attractive fine tannin plume. Has a substance, tannin quality, and the balance to age for the long term. A beautiful, expressive Bin 128 showing the class of Terra Rosa vineyards and the thumbprint of the Penfolds house style. The next wine in the series after the Bin 128 Coonawarra Shiraz is the Bin 138 Shiraz Grenache Mataro from the 2019 vintage, coming in at $60 a bottle. The Bin 138 Shiraz Grenache Mataro from the 2019 draws its inspiration from the wines of the Southern Rhone, where Shiraz, Grenache, and Mataro Mourvedre are blended in varying proportions to create full-bodied wines, possessing rich and heady perfume. Each year fruit, the Bin 138 is sourced from the old Barossa Valley vines, some more than 100 years old, and then matured for 20 to 15 months in seasoned oak hogshead to allow the different varietals to shine through. The first vintage release of this varietal blend was a 1992 labelled Old Vine Barossa Valley. It was then elevated to bin status with the 1998 vintage. It has been described as deep crimson, lovely boysenberry, musky plum, black cherry, dark chocolate aromas with graphite herb garden notes. Generous and buoyant with rich boysenberry, dark plum, dark cherry praline flavours, with underlying ginger notes, plentiful fine, chalky, chocolatey tannins, superb mid-palate volume, and integrated fresh, pure linear acidity, lovely mineral length, a brilliant early drinking style with plenty of fruit, generosity, volume, and mineral freshness. It will age, but the best times are now. A very successful follow-up vintage. The next wine in the collection is the Bin 28 Shiraz, coming in at $50. So the Bin 28 Shiraz from the 2019 vintage showcase is a showcase of warm climate Australian Shiraz, ripe, robust, and generously flavoured. First made in 1959, Bin 28 was originally named after the famous Barossa Valley Kalimna vineyard purchased by Penfolds in 1945, and from which the wine was originally sourced. Today, Bin 28 is a multi-region, multi-vineyard blend, with the Barossa Valley always well represented. So it's less savoury and more generously fruited than many of our other 2019 Penfolds bins, and it has been described as deep, bright red-purple colour, leaving residue in the glass, multifaceted blackberry, smoky graphite, iodine, and discrete spice aromas, with background licorice and a very full-bodied palate, which is firm and gripping. The tannins are assertive and strength-giving, contributing to a very long and authoritative aftertaste, penetrating and satisfying, a top-level Shiraz. It's also been described as deep crimson, intense elderberry, blackberry, cranberry aromas with red licorice aniseed notes, elemental, vigorous and juicy with fresh, persistent elderberry, blackberry fruits, plentiful brambly al dente textures, attractive mid-volume, and fresh, long acidity. Finishes chewy firm with dark chocolate, Chinotto, dark berry fruits. Needs some time for the elements to fold into each other. A Penfolds staple that seemingly never disappoints. The next wine as part of the release is the Bin 311, the Bin 311 Chardonnay 2020 of the 2020 vintage, coming in at $50 a bottle. So the Bin 311 Chardonnay from the 2020 vintage truly reflects the winemaker's mantra of going where the fruit grows best and where it best suits style. In the previous release of Bin 311, fruit sourcing moved to multi-regional cool climate regions in true Bin 311 style. Not unlike Yattarna, it exhibits lemon-lime aromas and mineral acid backbone complemented by barrel fermentation and maturation in mostly seasoned oak. Minimal filtration is employed, preserving elegant fruit flavours. And it was imagined to be a crisp, pure, fruited style that would evoke the best of cool climate Australian Chardonnay. It's been described as pale gold with lovely clarity, volume, and crunchy persistence. Not for the long term, but delicious to drink now. A great follow-up vintage showing the hallmarks of multi-regional, multi-vineyard sourcing, precision winemaking, and assemblage, the Tasmania factor playing first violin. The next wine in the collection is the Bin 23 Pinot Noir from the 2020 vintage, coming in at $50 a bottle. So looking at the Bin 23 Pinot Noir from the 2020 vintage, its name is derived from the place the wine matures, cellar 23 at Magill Estate, and follows in the footsteps of the success and development of the Penfolds Cellar Reserve Pinot Noir. Bin 23 Pinot Noir is a bold and dynamic inclusion to the Penfolds red wine stable, reflecting an evolving style, regional definition, and the complexities of the many varied Pinot Noir clones. The relationship between Penfolds and climate regions continues with this multi-regional sourcing of Bin 23 Pinot Noir. It's been described as a true Pinot Noir rather than just another Penfolds red, And if 2019 declared it, 2020 confirms it, leading out with juicy, spicy, engaging berry fruit purity. It pulls into a finely textured tale of herbal intrigue and intricately assembled, fine-grained mineral tannin structure. Poached strawberries, fresh morello cherries, and just plucked raspberries declare a magnificent and alluring profile, underlined by nuances of rosehip and a glimmer of exotic spice from judiciously played whole bunch fermentation. And it is thought to be best for early drinking with the structure of this wine. The last wine of the 16 in the release of the Penfolds Australia Collection 2021 is the Bin 51 Eden Valley Riesling from the 2021 vintage, coming in at $40. So $40 a bottle for the 2021 vintage of the Bin 51 Riesling. So the Bin 51 Eden Valley Riesling from 2021. It was created in the 1990s as part of the evolving Penfolds white wine development program. Bin 51 captures many attributes of the Eden Valley local. The region's high altitude and cool climate induces Riesling with great finesse and elegance with a capacity for long-term cellaring. South Australia has gained worldwide recognition for producing definitive world-class Riesling, and Eden Valley always features. In their youth, the wines possess scented floral and citrus aromas with a mineral edge and marked natural acidity, contributing significant to the palate texture and flavour. And this is coming in at $40 a bottle, and it's thought that it can be cellared for about 20 years. So peak drinking to 2031. And this is very much aligned with the classic 2002 and 2005 Bin 51 vintages. It's been described as lovely fruit volume and drive despite its elegant structure. Should age for the medium to long term. A lighter Eden Valley Riesling style with lovely pure fruits and mineral cut, but very much in the Penfolds vernacular. A few years of bottle age will give it more richness and complexity. It rounds out the 16 wines in the Penfolds 2021 Australia Collection. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please give it a like so that other people who would be interested in videos like this could be suggested this on YouTube. Comment below what wine you're looking forward to most out of the 2021 collection from Penfolds. I might be able to do a wine review in the future on one of those if you comment below, and I might pick one of those out. And if you're new here and you're enjoying the content I'm creating about wine and the world of wine, please consider subscribing. And I'm looking forward to the release of the California collection for 2021 to do another video like this. If you want to check out my previous video that I did about the inaugural release of the Penfolds California collection, feel free to ask the question and watch the video about what is the Penfolds California collection that I've answered in a previous video. Otherwise, remember, wine is best shared with friends and family, and I'll see you in my next video.